Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I want to wish you a very happy new year. And here's hoping and praying that 2021 is going to be vastly different in every good way from 2020. This week, my guest is Irene Kwong, and she runs the website and business Simply Gilded. Irene started off on Etsy and eventually transitioned into growing her brand off of Etsy. And so we're going to talk about that and how she did it and what led to that, and just learn more about her business. And Irene, thank you so much for being my guest. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Gemma. It's so nice to be here today. Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes, Happy New Year to you too. And I'm so glad to be starting off the year with you, because I think it's a good time to reset. 2020 was rough for many of us. And I think the way you pivoted your business is, for us, I feel is going to inspire goals and aspirations for 2021. We're looking forward to the new year. And so I'm really excited to hear how you did it. And so as we start this conversation, can you just tell us about yourself and what it is you do at Simply Gilded?
Okay, so my name is Irene, and I'm the artist and designer at Simply Gilded. I started the business about 2015, like December 15th of 2015. So it's almost, well, it will have been 5 years by now that we've been in business. I live in Seattle with my husband, my two kids. And yeah, this is a business that it's a creative business. We make stationery products and, especially washi tape. I don't know if you've heard of washi tape, but it's a popular, I guess, medium that a lot of people use in their planners and in their scrapbooks.
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I've never really known what exactly it is.
I get that question a lot. It's totally fine. It's actually, not, and I just learned about this recently too. It actually wasn't in existence until like just a few years ago. It was actually born in Japan in 2006, which is like pretty young. It's definitely younger than me.
Yeah.
So, and it came about by a group of women in Japan that decided they wanted pretty tape. And, a lot of people don't necessarily know what to do with it, but it's a really beautiful medium. People are starting to use it as an actual art medium. Like they'll draw these beautiful pictures and they'll use washi tape to actually fill in the different sections. And, again, it's just a really beautiful accent to any of your projects.
What's the texture of washi tape? Is it like the paper tape that you can tear, or is it more like duct tape that's has a tightly woven fabric?
That's a great question, because there's a lot of different types, but traditionally it's kind of made out of rice paper. So it is kind of it has this translucency that's really beautiful, and you're able to, tear it really easily. You don't need a little cutter like Scotch tape or anything like that. You can just tear it with like your hands or like a credit card or whatever.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How did you discover washi tape?
So, and I don't even know if I want to go into the long backstory right now. I'll do the short version. But I was working, a job before. We kind of talked about it before. I was a pharmacist many moons ago, and I was working wild 14-hour shifts. And I was like so burnt out. And at night I would go home, and how I would kind of decompress was I would go online and I would just kind of scroll, Instagram, and just by the things that I guess I liked or whatever the algorithm was at the time, it started to bring up more like stationery and paper goods. And, one night I just came across washi tape, like just randomly. And I had never heard of it before either, up until the point that I had seen it. And I just was super like drawn in. There's something about it that just really attracted me to it. And I was always a sticker collector when I was younger, and I loved collecting stickers. I hoarded stickers. I still have my sticker collection.
Oh, wow.
And so it was basically like a long sticker, and that just kept like coming and coming. It was a sticker that kept giving. So I thought it was just really neat. And I bought a whole bunch of rolls. I kind of went down the rabbit hole, and I that's how I kind of got into it.
Wow. And so then what led you to Etsy?
Well, I had purchased from Etsy before.
Okay.
At the time, I know that I've always been kind of a crafty, creative person. I was a big scrapbooker.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would look for like really unique gifts because Etsy still is, people know it's handmade, you're supporting small businesses, and you can find really unique things. It's almost got a boutique kind of, reputation to
Yeah.
it. So I, discovered a lot of shops through there. And, that's how I kind of discovered Etsy to begin with. And so I was already familiar with the platform by the time I was ready to kind of do my own shop.
Okay. And what was the inspiration to open your own shop on Etsy?
I knew that I wanted to have a shop at some point because when I made the decision at some point that I really wanted to design and produce my own line of washi tape.
Okay.
And so, after thinking about it a lot and kind of weighing the pros and cons of having my own website, Etsy honestly just made it so easy
Yeah.
to basically like, bam, you have your shop. Everything's in place. You just have to like hook a few things up here and there, and then you're ready to go.
Okay.
So it made it so seamless and easy for me that, I already had so much else going on with like kids and a, full-time job that I didn't really want to go through and wade through that whole technical, like, let's start my own website type thing.
Yeah.
And I loved the fact that it was a marketplace. It was a built-in marketplace. So there's people like me who are searching for one thing. They might run into something similar and they might also run into my shop. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a great way to kind of introduce a new product.
Okay. How was the transition onto Etsy? Did you have a steep learning curve, or once you got on there, you were able to figure things out?
I think that Etsy made it pretty easy. I think you had your listing. I think the hardest part for me with the whole starting my business stuff was all the stuff that I don't know, maybe some people love it, but just like making sure you're complying with the laws, making sure that your business is like registered properly, making
Yeah.
sure you have your, your sales, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that was honestly the hardest part, was that portion of it. Etsy, and I know now too, even as I've been on the platform for several years, they make it easy for you with the taxes,
Yeah.
honestly, like much easier than Shopify does. Like,
Oh.
so it's just kind of something that takes one other thing off your plate.
Yeah. So growing your business on Etsy, what was that experience like?
It was interesting because, I think it was not just Etsy that did it. And this is what I recommend to anybody else who's starting their business, in any whatever niche you may be in, is to just honestly get involved in your, not even local, but just in different communities. There's so many communities on the internet. It's so easy to get connected to people nowadays. And that's how I kind of connected and found my audience. I was already in these groups where people were already interested in the same types of things that I was interested in. And so that kind of made it easy because when I was ready to launch a new product or talk about a new product, I almost had a built-in audience there as well. So not only within the realm of Etsy, where again, it was probably helpful to start in a marketplace where people could find you,
Yeah.
but also to be able to kind of market in a way that was more direct. Like you already have an audience that is interested in wanting to buy.
And so these interest or affinity groups that you were a part of, where were you finding them? On social media like Facebook or Instagram? Okay.
Instagram and Facebook for sure. That's where, and I'm part of the planner community. That's really how it started, which is actually kind of a renaissance of sorts because the planner community did not exist over like 5 to 6 years ago as an actual community. I mean, people knew what planners were. We've had like Franklin Covey planners around forever. We've had planners for years, but people with the digital age, they started using their phones. They started, kind of deviating more from paper. And it was kind of a return to paper. And people really liked the feel of, I think, like a pen to paper.
Yeah.
And, it was a community of just like-minded people who are really, really into that.
Okay. Was it hard when you went from being like I don't want to say a member of the community, but let's say more of a consumer member of the community to a seller, to make that transition and find that you had to, not had to, but when you were marketing to the community, was it more difficult, or was it
Oh,
a harder transition than when you were just part of an interest group and everybody was maybe sharing tools and knowledge and tips?
that's a good question. Um, you know what? It was
Yeah.
for me personally, just because of my personality,
Mm-hmm.
it felt so weird to like sell myself in any way, shape, or form. Like I'm just not that person. Like I remember when I was a child and I was in Girl Scouts, I was scared to sell cookies. Like I refused to even like knock
The
on doors. I
cookies
had
that
my
sell
sister go into it
themselves.
for me. So I'm like, how am I ever going to do this without just coming off as, salesy or,
Yeah.
um, that, I'm trying to think back on how I actually did it.
Mm.
I think that I just, I had an Instagram, and I had like 12 followers in the beginning. And it was, like anyone just starting off. And it was, half of those people were your family and friends.
Yeah.
And then, but as being in the community, it was just, I was like, hey, like I am starting a business. I'm really excited. This is what I'm doing. Like, if you want, you check me out. No pressure either way. But this is what I'm doing. And so like that's kind of how it started. And it wasn't like this rush of people that came in.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still, enough that there was some interest.
Okay. Okay. But did you have any experiences with people being put off by the fact that they felt you might have been marketing to them in any way?
You know, it was so, to be honest, I had the benefit of it being very early on, like
Okay.
with the planner community just getting started and just getting together.
Mm-hmm.
So to be honest, when I did announce it, there was like already a want and a need out there, and people were excited about it. So I feel like I was kind of lucky in that regard, where people were asking about it. They were curious. They weren't like, oh, it's just another shop trying to sell me something. And
Yeah.
to be honest, when I did try to start talking about my product and what I was doing, um, it was more like it was positive. I don't remember there being very much negativity at all.
Okay. Oh, that's good. All right.
Yeah.
So you start on Etsy and you're growing. What were some of the things that you truly enjoyed about being on the platform?
It was not the ease of use,
Yeah.
like I had mentioned before, and how they made it easy to start a business.
Yeah.
And I think it was really neat to have everything in one. I honestly liked the messaging in one place, so that if someone had a
Mm.
question about something or an order, like everything was kind of, you wouldn't have to be switching to email and all these other places like I kind of have to
Yeah.
do now.
Yeah.
But it was kind of one, all in one,
Mm-hmm.
with being able to get the shipping out and everything. I don't know because with Etsy, I don't know if I don't remember if I used ShipStation, which is what I use now to ship my orders that
Okay.
integrates with Etsy. I don't know if I used that at the time or if I started off just with like Etsy shipping too. But
Okay.
I don't know. There was a lot of good things about it.
Yeah.
And people could leave reviews, and it was just like, that helped with the, like what they call social proof. People can trust
Yeah.
your shop more if you have more reviews,
Yeah.
and people can favorite your shop. And then, it just, yeah, it was really easy. And I really enjoyed my early Etsy days.
Okay. So, did you have any struggles on the platform? Were there things that made it hard for you to scale your business or
Yes.
do other things that you felt you wanted to or were capable of doing?
Right. Oh boy, the scaling part. So in the beginning, like I said, everything when I maybe had a few orders here and there, like it was, no big deal. But when you're starting to get like hundreds to thousands of people on your site at one time,
Mm.
even on Etsy, like I didn't realize. And at the time, I don't know how Etsy has changed since, because honestly, I've been off of Etsy for a few years now.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, they didn't have any direct customer support. You had to kind of you had to leave a message and have them call you back,
Oh, yeah.
or you had to email them. So in the midst of, for example, a new release, I remember there was this moment where I had, over 1,000 people on the site trying to purchase things, trying to purchase the same things
In your shop?
in my shop. Yes.
Whoa.
And so it's sold out very early, but for some reason, like things were going negative, like duplicate orders were happening, and I was freaking
Oh.
out. I got over 200 emails in the span of like 10 minutes. I kid you not, after that happened. And I literally like sat down and cried because I was so frustrated that I could not reach anybody to help me, you know?
Yeah.
So that was probably one of the challenges and one of the real kind of points in time where I realized that something had to change. And so, you know, of course I had some conversations with people at Etsy, you know, like I never had, you know, a direct line to anybody really. But I was able to at least voice my concerns via email. But nothing honestly changed. And at that point I said, you know, like Etsy has been great for the time that it has, but you know, I need a platform that can really support me in my growth.
Yeah.
So it just, you know, it hit me kind of hard at the time, and it was really like scary to move off a platform. But that was, you know, one of the biggest challenges that I had was being able to have the support for a shop of my size, or that was growing at the rate that I was growing, because it honestly wasn't even that big of a shop still. It was just, you know, the I don't know. I don't know how they do it. I don't want to say it broke Etsy, but on that particular day.
Right, yeah. And
Yeah.
was something special going on that day, or you were just launching a new line?
Yes, it was like a new release. I don't
Okay.
remember if I was running a sale even at the time. I just
Okay.
remember there was a limited quantity of like these bundles that I was doing. And I remember a lot of people wanted it. And then I started to get
Okay.
nervous, and I started, because to be honest, and, you know, with inventory, when you're first starting out as a business, you have no idea. Like, at least I didn't know.
Right.
I had
Yeah.
no idea what I was doing, Jama. Like, I ordered way too much inventory, like more inventory than I even order now. Cause I was like, oh, you save more if you buy in bulk.
Yeah.
It was such a bad idea. I had that inventory on my shelf for years.
Oh.
So a lot of it was just trial and error and figuring out what works, like any other business. But,
Mhm.
you know, there's been so many like stories and things that have happened to me over the years that I would be happy to share about. If you have any like questions about any specifics,
For
just let me know.
sure.
But it's
Well,
really,
one thing I'm curious about is, did you have any trepidation when you decided if Etsy couldn't handle the volume that you were
mm,
getting to go out on your own? Because I would think, okay, well, Etsy is established. They have,
mm,
I'm sure, a whole IT department. And
mm.
the thought of me saying, okay, I'm going to go out on my own and do this myself and be my own IT department would petrify me.
Oh
What
yes.
gave you the courage to still step out on your own and do that?
I don't know if it was so much the courage or the pain, the pain of it not working.
Mm,
Um, because like once you reach a point where it's just like you know, everyone in their business has certain pain points, especially when you're growing and scaling.
yeah.
And at that point, it was just so, because this happened not just once, it happened multiple times. And
Oh,
every time I would
really?
get super frustrated, I would write an email like, hey, you know, what type of support can I get from you guys? You know, this is, you know, you know, I'm selling a whole bunch of stuff. You know, I know that you know, I just would love to have some more support in terms of like, how can I make sure that this doesn't happen again? Can you even see what happened?
Yeah.
And it was really hard to get an answer. And so that after a while was super frustrating. And just like, you know, we are, you know, a client or a customer of Etsy's, the fact that I wasn't getting a response that was, you
Mm-hmm.
know, that was helpful
Mm-hmm.
and that was actually going to make me feel secure in using that platform, I knew that it was just time for me.
Hmm.
Um, and, you know, as much as I, again, have loved Etsy and giving me the start that I had, I knew that it was time to kind of move to my own platform. And at that point, I don't remember what my social media looked like at that point, but I had kind of built up a following at that point too, which really
Yeah.
helped as well. I had built my Facebook group and my Instagram. And
Oh, wow.
at that point, I felt a little more confident about branching out on my own.
Okay. And I want to say that's a trend I've seen or heard from other people who have branched out. I'm thinking now
Mm,
specifically about Jennifer from Queen Custom Claus. It was the same thing. She had built such a following that
mhm.
were loyal to her. Like they look forward to the products she was coming out with and loyal enough to follow her wherever she went.
Right.
And is that a similar experience that you had? That
I would say
Mhm,
it definitely is. And I was
mhm,
also again, I don't know what Etsy offers nowadays, but I know that Shopify had a lot of tools. It was a very powerful, and it is a very powerful e-commerce platform.
Mm-hmm.
And between all the special things I wanted to do with like widgets and rewards programs and email lists and all those things, it really gave me more options in that realm. And I think that it was just kind of the next step.
Okay. So I'm hearing that a key to actually growing your business is owning your customers and building your customer base, because as long as you're sharing the customers, the people, let me rephrase that. As long as you're sharing the people who come to shop on Etsy with everyone else in your niche, they're not loyal to you. They're more loyal to the platform. But once you build that loyalty to the products that you have, and they come looking for you and not just looking for accessories or what have you, you have them.
And I'm glad that you brought that up too, because with Etsy, you know, like I did have that fear when I left that people would be scared to leave the platform because it was a platform they trusted. It was a platform they had their account on already. And so there was that sense of, like you said, trepidation about moving, because I was wondering, hey, will they follow me off Etsy?
Yeah.
And the thing is, it turns out that a lot of people already trusted me as a business enough to know that I wasn't going to, you know, scam them on a separate site now that Etsy didn't have me to, you know, hold me accountable. They knew that I had built that trust with them, that they knew that I would still honor our relationship.
Okay. What things, if any, in particular, did you do to grow your following on social media?
Okay, so this is interesting because things are always changing on social media. As you know, I'm sure you know, the landscape is always changing. There's a new algorithm, it seems like every other, you know, week.
Yeah.
To be honest, in the beginning, what worked for me was a lot of giveaways and a lot of, you know, like I guess you just talk to your customers, you just interact and you engage, and you know, you really build relationships with your customers, and not to just be fake and not to just sell something. Like, it's because you genuinely care and you are interested in your customers. And I think that people can feel that a lot. And so that's kind of, I don't know where I was going with that.
So that's why your people bonded with you and felt comfortable following you to your own platform.
Right.
Yeah. And that's how your following grew. And I hear that a lot too, is engage with the people who are engaging with you and showing interest in what you do.
Right. It's such a gift, though, that somebody is taking time out of their day to like come to your site. Of all the other millions of things they could be doing in the world, they come to your site and they leave a nice message. So the like, I try as much as I can too nowadays, even though I might not get. I try to at least like things, even though I might not always leave a full message. But I try to get back to everyone if possible. I mean, it takes a long time. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I don't hire somebody for my social media. It's all me. And you know, like with messages and things, it can take like a few hours a day sometimes to get back to everybody. But it's something that I've you know, I honestly love it. I love being able to connect to people on a very like real level. And I love being able to, you know, share in the joy that they have when they get a package or when they create something with the washi tape. It's just really an amazing feeling.
Do you get a lot of user-generated content that you reshare, maybe pictures from people showing you how they're using the products that they buy?
And that's the beauty of having like a group, or like you said, like with the hashtags and everything on social media, is that you see what people create and you are in turn able to share that. And so they feel great that you're sharing their work, and you know, you feel great because they're creating with your product, and it's a really great exchange, and it's a really kind of like beautiful symbiotic relationship, you know.
Nice. Lovely. Okay, so it's time to move from Etsy. They're not technically able to handle what your market is requiring. How did you make the decision to go with Shopify? Did you look at any other alternatives or any of their competitors?
Oh yeah, like I looked at several. Who was it that I looked at? I think there's a few out there. Volusion, I think, is one.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Who is the other one? Is it Big something?
Big Cartel.
Big Cartel. That might have been it. Yeah, there's a few other ones that I looked at, but honestly, Shopify was far and wide the number one choice for me, just because there were so many built-ins already, and it seemed like a really popular platform. And it, after being kind of just kind of nervous, I guess, after the support issues with Etsy, I just wanted to make sure that it was a very established like support system. It was very widely used, and I would know that it'd be taken care of.
And do you get that? Does Shopify give you support?
Oh yeah, there's been, I mean, things of course haven't been perfect on Shopify. We've still had little hangups here and there and issues, but in general, they're really good about responding. They have an instant chat box that you can access, or phone. They have a lot of different ways that you can reach them.
Okay.
So yeah, I found that they have been helpful.
And their support is available 24/7?
Yes, that's something nice about it. Honestly, I might have to check, because I think that it is for every plan, but I'm not 100%.
Okay.
I know that I eventually, like, I started on basic, and then now I'm up to I'm not on Shopify Plus or anything like that, but I am like on the higher levels of the, you can choose your different levels based on, the different things that they offer. But yeah, like I found that they have been very helpful and available.
What was the learning curve like? Did you build your site yourself initially?
Not, and to be honest, just yesterday, or just, this will be, I just launched my new site just recently. And as in a few days ago for me. Thank you. But before that, it was all me. And like you said, the process of building a site was definitely more involved than Etsy, because, you have to pick out your theme, and then you have to like arrange all the things. It's not just some automatic thing that pops up. So that took a lot more work. And then you have to integrate your different widgets. So you have to integrate your MailChimp and your ShipStation or whatever shipping system that you're using, if you're using one. And so it's just, it's a lot more work. It is. It took me a good, I think, was it over a week plus to get everything to where I wanted it. And even then, I had a pretty wonky looking website, because I'm not blessed with computer expertise in any way, shape, or form. Technology is not my best friend. I try, we try to have a decent relationship, but it's just, it's not my forte. So yeah. So anyway, I stumbled my way through that. I tried out a few things in the coding, to try to get things to where I wanted it, just tweaking things here and there. But mostly I used the built-in theme, like a free theme or whatever. And you can pay more to make it look nicer. I just couldn't be bothered at the time. I don't know why I didn't look for a nicer site. But that site stuck with me for up until like a few days ago.
Wow, really?
Yes, and it was so not what I wanted it to be, but it worked. It worked. At the end of the day, it did its job. And so there are no complaints there, besides the fact that I was dragging my feet.
Oh, well, I like that, because at least that's proof that, one, it can be done if you're not highly technically savvy, and two, you can make it work even as you grow before you have to invest in maybe a professional web designer or developer.
It is, and it is such out of the box, such a powerful platform. Like, people do not realize how powerful it is. Like, it is able to handle traffic like none other. It is like even at the most basic of levels. So I mean, it's really something that if you are looking or very curious about transitioning from Etsy to Shopify, or Etsy outside of Etsy in general, that is something I highly recommend.
Okay. And so now, do you handle everything on the back end yourself, like updating, adding new products and?
Yeah.
Okay, it's all you. Okay.
At this point, I don't know if I'm doing it right. I don't know if there's ever a, quote unquote, right way of doing things. A lot of people would look at me and say, why are you doing this? If you're really, focused on growing your business, why are you still writing the emails? Why are you still doing X, Y, Z? Yes, I'm still taking the pictures. I'm still, and not to say, because you know what, everything is what you make of it. Do I want to grow at the pace that I grew right now at this time of my life? No, I can say that I'm happy with where I'm at right now. And, once I'm ready, I'll know in my body.
Yeah.
But right now I know that this is like a good place. It's a good pace. Maybe sometimes still a little too fast for me, but I'm still doing a lot of the stuff that maybe I should be outsourcing at this point. I do have some help, actually. I do have, well, definitely with customer service and a little help with like setting up some listings, but I'm still doing like a lot of the pictures, going through and double checking everything.
Okay.
And that was probably one of the hardest parts of scaling as well, is just knowing when to delegate and how to delegate, because
Yes.
growing something from its baby stages, it's literally your baby,
Yeah.
and you don't want to like give it up, and knowing
Yep.
everyone's personality is a little different. And now I have a warehouse that's based in Texas and I'm out here in Seattle. And that was probably the healthiest thing for me, because otherwise I would be up in that warehouse in everyone's business like every single day. And so, but it just works better this way. I have more time and space to focus on the things that I really should be focusing on, and just knowing that I trust my team to take care of everything
Okay.
else. So,
Wow.
yeah, and that was one of probably the hardest parts of scaling too, is building a cohesive team that you can trust,
Yes.
with everything.
Did you make some mistakes along the way while you were building out your team?
Girl, we could have a whole other podcast on this. Yes. Like in the beginning was nice because my husband would help out. We would be doing that whole late night shift after you put the kids to bed, after you
Yeah.
get home from work, and then you go work, do your second, third shift
Yeah.
with the business. And so thank goodness he was there, and he's been a wonderful support for me. But also, like I think I put my first job request out on Craigslist. I don't know if people use Craigslist
Oh,
anymore, but
yeah.
that was where and not to say that I had a few candidates and I interviewed them, but now as I go along, I kind of know the questions to ask,
Mhm.
because I found out at every point in time like what I had done wrong in my hiring process. And
Yeah.
like, and everything, and this is what happens in business, that everything falls on you as the owner of
Yeah.
like you would love, as much as I would love to blame everybody else, like it's this person's fault, it's my fault, I hired you. I didn't either train you well enough, or I didn't like make my expectations clear enough. So
Yeah.
it's just a learning curve. And I think that was one of the hardest things for me, because I had never been like a true manager before of anything. And
Mm-hmm.
so to suddenly have this thrust upon me as this responsibility, and to be able to communicate the things that needed to be communicated, it just was, again, a steep learning curve.
Do you still use Craigslist?
No. No, I
Okay.
don't. No. Does anyone use Craigslist
I don't know. Maybe.
anymore? I don't know.
I used to, but yeah, no, not anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot of other avenues that are maybe hold people more accountable and aren't as anonymous. I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
that probably are maybe a little safer. So
If you want to check out Irene's website, it's at simplygilded.com. That's simplygilded.com. I will, of course, have links in the show notes for this episode, but you can hop over and take a look at it maybe as you listen. Irene, one of the things that you're doing, well, there's so much you're doing that intrigues me, but I'll start with this. So one of the things that we often hear is pick a niche and stick with that and, master it or become known for that.
Mhm.
But you're doing multiple things. Like your products span different categories. You have paper and stationery. You also
Mhm.
have accessories. And then, of course, the washi tape that you started off with, which caters to the planner community. At
Mhm.
what point did you start to branch out, and did you think it was a good idea to, if you will, dilute your brand?
No, that's a really good question. And there, like when you started off with the whole, find a niche and stick to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anything wrong with starting that way, for sure, because
Mm-hmm.
it's great to be known for something, and great to
Mm-hmm.
be like the go-to person for something.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you said, I think my creativity didn't want to be confined to just one area either. And I did
Mm-hmm.
have, a lot of customers asking me, because they liked my design aesthetic. I took the advice from them and feedback from my customers in regard to like where I should go next. And there's also things that I was just curious about doing in general. Like I told you before, I was obsessed with stickers as a kid. So it was
Yeah.
natural for me to want to do stickers. I love paper products in general. I hoard so much stationery.
I do
So it
too.
was just, it was fun to kind of explore those different things as well. And, like not every product is going to be a hit. There's going to be stuff that people are like, well, why are you doing this? Like, why, why would I buy XYZ from you?
Right.
But it never hurts to try. And that's like kind of the beauty of having a business and having, the freedom to kind of choose your own path and what you want it to be.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anyone needs to like box themselves into one thing.
Yes.
Of course, you have to, at the end of the day, look at, your bottom line. Is this product going to sell or not? And kind of, make smart decisions about where you're going to go. But if there is interest, in other areas too, then I would say, yeah, go for it.
Okay. How do you determine when a particular product is not successful, and how do you phase out those ones from your offerings?
Well, it just sits on the shelf forever. It collects dust. Or there's just not very much buzz about, like there's a lot of reasons why, like, or people just don't use it or talk about it or share it. So, and that's okay. Like there's going to be a lot of like hits and there's going to be a lot of misses. So, even with the washi designs that I do too, I try to stay as, true to myself as I can. But there are times where I feel like I do need to listen to my customers a little more because they want more of this or more of that. And so you just have to always be listening and always be, that's why engagement is really so important. Because you just have to kind of find out what it is that you ultimately are in service to your customers. You're playing that role. And so even though it's important to be able to express yourself and your vision and your goals and things that you want to do, but it's also, you have to take your customers into consideration.
Right. One of the other things that you're also doing on simplygilded.com is you offer a subscription box. I am so intrigued by that. How?
Oh, girl, it's been a blessing and a curse. I hate to call it that way. It's wonderful because yes, you have that recurring income and I wouldn't even call it passive income stream, but you at least know that every month approximately you'll get this much. So you can like account for like, how much this is going to bring in through this channel and how much, so it's been really nice because I know that at least we'll be getting this much every month. At the same time, it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure because things go wrong. You have, especially a monthly box where you have to deliver every month and you're on a very, very tight time frame, especially when you're waiting for products to come in. And sometimes there's, especially, recently with the pandemic, there's been all these shipping issues where you're not getting your product in time. And then, it just gets sent out later. You have to send out the emails. You have to just be in constant contact with your customers, letting them know, hey, I'm really, really sorry. This hasn't come in yet. We're just going to do the best that we can. So there's like definitely pros and cons to a sub. Right now, I think we're about to be at our 3-year mark for our sub right now. Yeah, so it's been really amazing. And I'm really, really grateful for the people that really believe in the product because, that is a true testament to customer loyalty, is somebody who is willing to order your product and commit to that product coming every month, even though they don't always know what it's going to be. But yeah, I think that was really fun. It was a way for me to kind of try out new products too. That's also a good almost test market for new products that I want to bring to the store. If people really love something from the box, I know that there's some interest there and it kind of helps guide my decisions.
So what you tend to include in the subscription box are not things that are available for sale.
Yes.
I see.
But sometimes there is, like at the end, after all the boxes have been shipped, a few months later, I'll release the excess if we have any extras of certain items.
Okay.
If people really like, for example, they really want the pen from the box that they got a few months ago, then they can purchase it separately at that time.
Okay.
But it kind of gives, of course, if you're a subscriber, you'll get that product first.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting to see people open up the boxes together, do the unboxings, and see what they create.
Do you have a cutoff for the subscription box just so that you don't run out? And I'll elaborate. So let's say someone subscribes to, to get the box every month.
Mm-hmm.
If they subscribe, say on the 25th of a given month,
Mm-hmm.
does their subscription include the month that they join, or do you start the following month? And how do you plan for people who join after you've put in your order for the month for the people who were already subscribed? Does that make sense what I'm
No, that
asking?
totally makes sense.
Okay.
And also, like, just to your point with the subscription box, like setting up the whole like how is this working thing hurt my brain a lot. Because I had to think of all the things like, and so we eventually got into a rhythm of things. And I don't have an exact date where people can cut off or come on. Like
Okay.
the thing is, it'll show up on the site as whatever box is available for purchase at that time.
Mhm.
So, for example, I have my my box up right now for the current month, and that will until it either sells out or until it's time to enroll in the next box, because it's being a subscription, it has an automatic charge date. So after that charge date is when I just kind of, you can still purchase up until after this, basically until it sells out or until I cut off the date before the next box charges. So basically, like once the next box charges on that date, I have to have the next box available. You
Okay.
can't have the previous box up still. So
I
that's
see.
kind of when it changes over. And I try to like, give a day to kind of have everything just clear where no one can subscribe.
Yeah.
But after, depend, and sometimes boxes sell out earlier and people just, that's that. But usually like the last endpoint to somebody signing up for that particular month would be right before the charge date.
Okay. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That does hurt the brain a bit though.
It does, because like it just depends on what platform you use. I mean, I know there's a lot of different subscription platforms that integrate with Shopify. I don't know if the Etsy has a way of doing subscriptions right now, but I know at least on Shopify, like I use Recharge, and it's it's a little complicated. You have to really get in there, and sometimes like you even have to get a developer jump in and help you a little bit with some of the stuff.
Mhm.
So that was probably, not as easy because you have to think of all the things that we just kind of discussed.
Yeah.
But it was definitely worth it because, like I've really enjoyed the process so far. And even though it's a lot of pressure too, because, one of the questions that I get a lot is how do you think up a different theme every month? I was like, I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I have a list of ongoing themes that I would like to explore, but there are some months like this past month was incredibly hard for me. I sat there for a good like week trying to
Wow.
put it together in my brain and feeling that pressure because it's hard as a creative. Sometimes you don't like to, and your brain sometimes does this thing where it's like, I'm just not going to create for you when you need it.
Yeah.
That's how creativity works sometimes. So I do get that creative block sometimes. So it definitely is a lot of pressure, and it's really good to like when you are in a really creative, when you're on that wave, to do as much as you can as you possibly can during that
Yeah.
time, so that you can kind of ride off of it in your times where it's not just flowing.
Yeah, I believe that too because I get those and I'm like, okay, it's flowing now, and I'm going to like 2 a.m. I'm like, I know if I go to sleep now, I'm going to lose it, so I have to
Yes, you
keep
can't.
going.
You got to keep going.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we touched briefly on inventory. Do you use any special type of tracking system just to know what's in stock, or does Shopify have tools to help you with that in any way?
Now, Shopify does have tools and they have widgets that I'm sure you could, install.
Mm.
I just have been terrible about it. I've been going really super old school. I've been doing just the counting by hand. We have a Google sheet somewhere
Yeah.
that the team and I share so we
Yeah.
can kind of see, and we do like occasional like checks, like, is this really inventory? Is it really matching up? And we'll
Yeah.
kind of do the counts and everything. But there is no complicated system. I don't have little like scanners that I go around with, even though I think maybe one day that would be
Yeah.
nice if I could
Yeah.
find a way to integrate that, because I know that's how, I'm sure Amazon does it. But for me, like it's all by hand.
Yeah. Well, I like that because, well, for one thing, you make it sound like it's accessible for others to do. Just knowing that you're using simple tools, no tools or simple tools like a Google spreadsheet. Anyone can
Yeah.
use a spreadsheet.
And free.
And free too. Yes, and free at that, because I think sometimes some of us get tripped or stuck on tools,
Right.
and we don't make progress because we're held up by, okay, what am I going to use to track my inventory? What am I going to
Right.
use to I don't know, what widget am I going to put on my website to collect email addresses and what have you, things like that. So I think it's kind of refreshing to hear that someone who is successfully growing a business and running it successfully is using the simplest of tools and getting the job done.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I mean, I don't know, like maybe someday it'll change, but right now, like I want to encourage people that really like I bootstrapped all this, and you can do it too. Like you're right, that was a great point that you really don't need the fancy tools and the fancy website and the fancy whatever. Like ultimately, you and your product speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And yes, like I do still, highly not I highly recommend you getting a nice camera so you put your pictures in the best light possible, because that is what you're selling. But besides that, like everything is kind of up to you, and there will be a time where you're like, if this isn't working anymore, then let me find a better way.
Yeah.
But right now it's still working, so
yeah,
if it ain't broke, as they say.
really, yeah.
Mhm.
And you're focusing on growing, and then when you get to the point where you need to change what's not working, then you can do that.
Right. And there are times, like, for example, I'm not in a crazy growth period right now where things get a little quieter and you can kind of really reassess and look at your different systems and processes that you have in place already. And at that point in time, you might say, hey, maybe it's a good idea to start doing that. We started, for example, assigning like SKUs, like a certain SKU to our thing to make it easier for pulling. And at that point in time, you have time and clarity to kind of think through things and try to make improvements where you think they need to be improved. But, like when you're in the growth phase, you're focused on the next thing.
Yeah.
You don't have time to kind of back up and see the big picture, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it is really nice to have like not this constant growth happening, because you'll never be able to like really get into your business and get your hands dirty and see where things need to be improved if you don't have that time to step away.
That's a good point. I think we always just want to keep growing, but
and that I learned is really not what I want, at least.
yeah. So other big girl things, how do you handle accounting and taxes?
Another thing that I hate is number. So really quick, like, and again, if you can afford it or if it's in your budget, or if you've like in the beginning, just really easy stuff. There's like QuickBooks, of course, to kind of do stuff on your own in the beginning. But when I started to bring on employees and I started to like, have just more like things to kind of keep tabs on, it really helped to hire an accountant. And so they helped me really figure out what, all the, like what class should your business be in, and like what you should be like. They figure out all that stuff because that's their best and greatest gift. That is what excites them. And for me, that does not excite me. It stresses me. So for me, I just felt like I really needed to apply my gifts and talents where it would most benefit the business. And to like, there's nothing wrong with like knowing, like really having hands-on with your business and understanding where the numbers are going and what they mean. Like it's good to have a basic understanding of that. But to be honest, like it has helped me so much to just be able to hand that off to somebody else.
Okay. So do you do any parts of it yourself? Do you put numbers anywhere?
Well, the nice thing about, Shopify is they have reports, and like the same thing with, if you use PayPal or if you integrate PayPal, which by the way, like I'm not like trying to push anything or the other, but I know like just as a consumer myself and as a shop owner, like that's a really great thing to have integrated in your shop. I know they take a cut and everything, but it really like, people really like using it.
You mean PayPal?
PayPal.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But they can pull reports from that, and they can just, find everything they need. And depending on what payment processor you're using through Etsy or Shopify, they're able to pull those reports if you, allow them to.
Okay. So that makes it easy.
Yeah.
And then they help you figure out how the business is doing, and they handle who gets paid and when as well.
No, we still actually, that is a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. We still handle the payroll completely. Like we are still in QuickBooks and we still kind of, run those reports and handle that portion of it. But they do the profit and loss statement, which of course I highly recommend everybody at least know how to understand that and read that and be able, if not, to have your accountant explain it to you, because that's obviously really, really important as a business owner to understand. But, that's something that's great about an accountant. They give you that, either monthly or quarterly, they'll present that to you so you can kind of see how your business is doing.
Oh, nice. Do they also help you file your taxes, or do they just give you everything and
Yes.
then you do? They do.
Oh goodness, it's such a help because
Yeah.
I tell you what, it gets really complicated as a business owner when you're having to, especially if you ship like to different states and
Yeah.
worldwide, it becomes a little complicated. So it's definitely nice to have, an accountant help sort that out for you too.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Knowing the numbers is a whole different thing, but also just as importantly, having a good grip on the numbers, and
Right.
when you grow, sometimes, like you said, it's just better to give it to people who, for them, it's their forte.
Yes, yes. And many of them like that.
Yeah.
That's what excites them at the end,
Yeah.
And I just, yeah, that makes my head just spin, and
Yeah.
it's not.
Yes. Now, how about marketing? So, when you were on Etsy, your social media following grew, and you were able to move away from Etsy. Now, what do you do in the way of marketing and promoting your business, if anything?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I have a few channels, of course. Like it's really great. Like I mentioned, if you are ever off Etsy and you're able, and even if you're on Etsy and there's any way like that you can have your customers sign up somehow to get the email list
Mhm.
started, that's so powerful and that's so helpful. That's how people know about my releases. That's how they know that new product is launching. That's how I
Okay.
communicate with them. But I think Instagram has been so instrumental in my social media just presence and growth and marketing. I don't pay for ads on them right now, but I do have, my following,
Yeah.
and I do a lot of things that engage people. I do lives, I do stories, I do, of course, the regular, I don't post as much as I probably should, but I do have accounts. Like, I don't know, I actually did this too. I have a separate account for my sub box that is separate from my main account,
Oh.
which I kind of wish I didn't in retrospect, but it's okay. Like it is just kind of what it is right now.
Yeah.
But it's just is a great way to again engage and get people, in the know on the new things that are coming out.
And is it all you on both of those accounts?
Yes, it's definitely it's definitely me.
Wow.
hmm
Do
So
you?
that's why it does take a long time to kind of get back to people sometimes. And if I miss
Yeah.
people, I'm really, really sorry. But sometimes it does kind of get lost in the
In the fray.
mix.
Yeah. And oh, I was going to ask you, do you have a schedule that you follow for maybe not posting in your feed, but for
hmm
when you do your lives and your stories, or do you just go as you feel led or moved?
I try a little bit of both. I
Okay.
try to announce, like, especially if there's a product launch coming up or I want to show off the new box for the month, I'll definitely announce it and let people know I'll be talking about it like this weekend, or I'll be talking about it on this day around this time.
Okay.
And then, whoever will join me at that time. And then
Okay.
I always save it so that people can access it later.
I
But
see.
another fun thing to do is to always like to help people get more engaged. I always also do like a little giveaway where I'm like, come join. And if you're on live with me, I'll pick a winner, and you can get a shop credit. But
Oh,
it's
that's
like,
fun.
yeah, and so that kind of draws a few people in, and that's just an idea in case you're trying to like build more engagement. People always love free
Oh,
things, so it's always good to to get people to get excited about things, especially when they have a free credit or even a coupon
yeah.
you could offer. So there's just a lot you could do with that, and again, it's another free platform for you. And nowadays, it's hard to tell like how much reach you're getting, especially with the new algorithms that are always
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah.
But it's still a very powerful and free tool
Yeah.
that you could easily, if you wanted to, transition into paid ads, because they have that available to you. You can boost your posts, you can get more eyeballs in your stuff that
Yeah.
way.
How do you pick a winner?
um Really old school again. Like people will come in and you see the comments, and unfortunately I don't think Instagram saves actual comments that are live, so you have to take screenshots throughout the like randomly throughout your live. That's how
Oh.
I know. It's maybe if there's a better way, someone let me know out there, but that's how I do it. And so at the end I just compile like that, and I just randomly pick a winner from the screenshots I have.
Okay. There's so much stuff you do that's so grassroots, you know?
Yeah, that's how I roll.
Yeah, yeah. I would like to do that. I mean, for the podcast, there's nothing to give away, really.
Oh, you never know. I could talk to you about some ideas. We could go through some things if you
Okay.
want afterwards.
All right. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So my next question is this. You moved from Etsy to Shopify. Would you say that the transition has paid off financially for you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's less number one frustration because, one of the lead things that will just, somebody might get just frustrated and never come back.
Yeah.
If there's like a technical issue or if there's something happens, and that is like something that I don't ever want to happen. So, that was something that was important to me when going to Shopify. And I'm sorry, what was the other part of the question?
Oh, that was the question, was if in your estimation it has paid off financially to have
financially. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that also, and it will differ in terms of like, because I know Etsy is always changing with their fees too. You just have to kind of like look at both and do your research and decide what's best for you, because I know that there's like listing fees for Etsy and there's, of course, cutting now with ads. I know that takes a little bit more too.
Yeah.
With Shopify, you're a little more in control of that. You can choose the tier that you want, and you can, kind of the more you pay per month, like, and again, it's kind of like you have to know your audience and know what type of output you're having when choosing the plan. If you really want to pay the most for the top plan, but then you can, if it makes sense financially, then you can pick something that has kind of a lesser, like, that takes a lesser cut if you pay more per month. So there's all like little things like that you could do just to make sure that you're saving where you can.
Yeah.
But again, like, to be honest, like, they give you a free trial in the beginning. So there's like no commitment, no like financial commitment, even in the way beginning.
Okay.
And then, after that point, like, I was on basic for a really, really long time. And so, just until it made sense to move up,
Okay.
it just, you have more options and a little more control.
Okay. I was going to ask, how do you know when? But okay. So I want to make sure I phrase this correctly, and I don't know if it's too big of a question. Let me know. What steps would you advise someone listening who is looking to grow and expand their brand in this coming year? What steps would you advise them to take in order to be able to grow their business by, I don't want to give a number. I don't want to say like 2 times or what have you. Everybody's number is different.
Just to grow in general. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's quite a few things. It also depends on like where you are. Are you saying like on Etsy or just in general, like to grow in general?
Just in general.
Okay. I think that for me at least, and because this world is such a visual world, like, invest in yourself a little bit. I know that I've been talking a lot about free this, free that. You can take advantage of that. That's great. But at the end of the day, you still have to look at where you might need to invest some money into it. For example, if your pictures aren't where you want them to be, you can invest in a nice camera. You can invest in some product photography. Those are things that you really can do that can make you stand out from the crowd. Okay. So, and really get your stuff out there, because you could have a beautiful product, and if you don't photograph it correctly, no one's going to even look at it. And so that's what grabs people, and that's kind of what draws them in is pictures and photography. So that, I think, is something that I would definitely invest in. If you haven't already joined, like different groups, I think it's important to invest in your personal growth as a business owner as well, and getting the knowledge from other people. I think one of the best things that helped me kind of really grow was the community around me, and not just the community as my consumers, but also other shop owners. You learn so much from each other, and if you meet the right ones, the ones who are like meant for you, then you'll really help each other like learn and grow and just expand your mindset. I always try to put myself in a position and try to encourage others to just be at their best selves. Like, we talk through issues that we might have and how to problem solve, how to, help each other. How can we, maybe do, for example, you asked me earlier about how can I, market, how can I do all these things.
Yeah.
In the beginning, we did a lot of loop giveaways. I know, again, with algorithms and stuff, it might not be the same as it used to, but that's also a nice way to engage with your own like community and other shop owners that kind of are in the trenches with you.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you just want to kind of lift each other up.
Okay. I like that. So it goes back to community and connecting is
Right.
a lot
And
of
I
what
will
I'm
tell
hearing.
you, I am the biggest introvert. Like when I started this, I was like scared of people. I like didn't really like, and I still am. That doesn't change who I am. But the fact is, when you meet the right people, it will all like, it makes a world of a difference.
Yeah.
And, the crafting community and like the creative community, I know it's just like, that's kind of, what helped me open up and be more comfortable with myself. Because before, people kind of looked at me weird, and I was like, I really like stickers and I really like washi tape, and I'm, in my late 30s.
Yeah.
But when you find your people, that's, you won't have to, you will be able to feel like yourself, and it'll be wonderful.
Yeah. And I have to just really agree with you on that. I know I don't talk, I try not to make this podcast too personal, but I agree with you on that because I feel the same way. And I've mentioned it on the podcast in the past. I'm trained as a pharmacist, and I've always felt kind of disconnected from that community just because it just never felt like me. And then connecting with this creative community on Etsy and beyond Etsy of people who I feel think like me and process things like me. I feel, even though I am an introvert, though I know nobody would believe that because I have this podcast, I really am. I haven't come across anyone I've spoken to in this community on the podcast or on social media or on Etsy that I haven't felt like was a friend.
Yeah.
Whereas it's different
so
where, in the pharmacy world where it's like, they're like, you do what? You craft? I'm like, well, yeah, I do. At least it was.
That's ultimately what we all want, is just to connect to people who see us and who understand us and who get us. And, you're in the right place.
Yeah.
And, if you're listening to this, you're in the right place. Like you just have to, listen to your heart a little more and just get connected to that.
Yes. So Irene, what plans do you have for Simply Gilded in 2021 and beyond?
Oh, goodness. Well, now that I have had, like I mentioned before, I have had a little time to kind of sit back and kind of think about things a little more now that it hasn't been just, nonstop. I feel like I would love to keep going with the different product lines to maybe, and this might kind of sound odd to people, but I do kind of want to explore wholesale at some point. I just, like I know I'm in a few retail shops right now, but it's not something I've ever really done or explored. And, it just would be neat to be like carried in different shops around the world and be able to support brick and mortar in that way, especially in time like now. So I think that would be just a really neat thing to explore. I would also like to, like you said, just different types of products. Like I've been thinking about calendars or greeting cards or other things that kind of just excite me, just anything stationary, more scrapbook paper or whatever. And I also wanted to be able to have more time to sit down and produce more like content and to give more value to my customers. Because like we started off saying, a lot of people don't even know what washi tape is.
Yes.
So to help them kind of familiarize themselves with like what they can actually do with the product, I would like to, maybe put up more videos or YouTube or whatever to help people, get more comfortable with it.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're going to have to catch up in about a year to see how 2021 turned out, huh?
Oh, yeah. I'm excited about it. I really am. I think a lot of people are looking for that kind of new leaf. I know it's a little symbolic. I know it's just another year, but it's just been hard this past year.
Yeah. We need something new.
We need something to look forward to. So this is great to like kick off the new year with a lot of, with a lot of hope.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm glad that we had this conversation to open up the new year, because I do think, it's kind of inspiring and like I said in the beginning, will give people, or even if it's just one person who is just on the edge,
Mm.
that inspiration to take the next step and not get hung up on what's lacking, but be able to move forward with what they do have and what they have accomplished so far, and just
Right.
keep going.
I agree 1,000%. Like I mean, I always say if I can do it, I know anyone out there can do it. Like
Yeah.
in your own special way. Like I know that
Yeah.
everybody has different gifts, and
Yeah.
it's just having that confidence in yourself that this is something valuable that you're bringing to
Yes.
to the world.
Yep. And I know lots of us struggle with that.
Especially now when you're like, I don't know if you've seen that meme where it's always like the world is ablaze, and you're like, does anyone want to buy a painting? Like, I don't know if you've
No,
seen
I
that.
haven't.
But it just sometimes it feels like that. And as artists, it's hard to see that value in your own work. Sometimes you're like, but what value am I bringing to the world?
Yes.
But if you would only see, the messages and the cards that I sometimes get from different customers saying, this little thing helped me so much. So
Oh,
it's just the same, like something that you created can bring somebody so much joy, and you
Yeah.
are actually doing them a disservice by not putting your stuff out there.
yeah. That's a word to me too. What's the best way people can connect with you if they want to stay in touch, or if they just have questions for you or want to carry on this conversation?
Absolutely. You can find me at the www.simplygilded.com, simplygilded.com. You can also find me on Instagram at @simplygilded or @simplygildedbox. And then I also have a business page and group on Facebook under Simply Gilded.
Okay. That's Simply Gilded and Simply Gilded Box. That's the one for the subscription box.
Yes.
Okay.
The one I
All
wish
right.
I had combined.
Okay. So
Yes.
I will make sure I link to everywhere that you can connect with Irene, so that you can stay in touch with her too. And at least until we reconnect on the podcast again,
Meet again.
because I think we'll do this again.
Yes. That was
Irene,
so
thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story and just what it's taken for you to get to where you are today. And I'm so proud of you and what you've done. And I look forward to what you're going to do this year. And I can't wait to have another conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. And the same goes for you too, Ijama. It was so fun. You're amazing too. We have a lot to talk about after this as well.
Thank you. You are welcome. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. Again, I want to wish you a very happy new year. Happy 2021. And I will be back next week with another episode.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.